Hi everyone, this is Heather and I'm back with another video. Today I'm going to be doing a process for an art journal page, or two. I think I'm going to do a double page spread. And I've kind of gathered some supplies here that I think I might use, and I'm just going to dive right into it. So I'm going to do some layering and get a little messy. So here we go. Thanks for watching. Scrap pieces of chipboard underneath my pages, and I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I find this a really good way to keep from getting my messy mediums all over the other pages of my journal, so it just helps the paint and everything else stay on the page that I want it to, and it catches a lot of mess that I would normally make. So here I'm just digging through my scraps, and these are a few pieces that I had left over from my December daily album, and I just figured I'm not going to use them for a while, so I might as well stick them in my art journal. So these stickers, a few of them are stickers, and a few of them are just die cut pieces that I fussy cut out. And I'm just using some Mod Podge. It is a matte finish Mod Podge, and I'm using that to adhere them all together. Even though it's a matte finish, I find that it has a bit of a shine once it's dry, but I think some of the shininess of my page also came from all the glimmer mists and stuff that I'm about to use. Not about to, but later on in the video. Here I'm ripping up pieces of a printed brown paper bag that I found in my stash, and again just Mod Podging those on. The idea with this page was really to just create a bunch of layers and textures, and I'm not too worried about the color of what I'm using because I know that I'll be painting over top of it, but the textures and prints will show through a little bit if I can help it. So here I just added a few more stickers, those music notes, and here's a few more just scrap cardstock pieces and scraps that I've cut off some things. And now I believe, oh, I'm going to add some tape. So this tape is from Seven Gypsies, and it's a printed tape. I have two different ones here that I'm going to use, and it's quite old. It's sort of a fabricy tape, but the adhesive on the back isn't very good anymore, so I'm using Mod Podge to adhere that as well. And here's the second tape. It's Seven Gypsies as well, and same thing, the adhesive wasn't very strong, so I just glued that on. And I think these provide a lot of really interesting texture. They're a lot thicker than washi tape, and layered on these other things, I think it looks really good. So here I've just found a scrap of cardstock, or it's actually pattern paper, that I'm going to adhere. And again, I'm just layering that on top of everything that I've done already. And I'm not very worried about what I'm covering up. I'm just pretty much randomly placing it and trying to get even distribution of all the patterns and textures throughout the two-page spread. So I'm just spreading it out, and wherever I see a sort of blank or empty space, I'm just adding whatever I think is missing from that spot. And I ripped the edges too, which gives it a bit more of an interesting texture. So here you can see I'm using my Basics acrylic paint, and this is in an off-white color, and I'm just generously painting that over all of my layers. And I probably didn't need to use this much paint. I do wipe quite a bit of it off later, so I could have watered down the paint to start with, but this is just part of my process, is learning and playing with my products, so I really enjoy doing that. And now you're going to see me add just some water to my brush and sort of swirl it around the page just to lift up some of that paint. And because my brush was still so heavy with paint, I didn't actually wash it. I'm now using a wipe to sort of absorb some of the extra paint. So this sort of gives it almost a whitewashed look. And I'm just doing that to the other side as well, trying to keep it as consistent as I can. And I'm quite happy with how all the patterns and textures are still showing through, although I'm going to add a lot more layers yet. So here you see me applying some Faber-Castell Gelato. This is in a black color, and because my whitewash paint area is still wet, it was really easy to blend just with my finger, and I didn't add any extra water. They are water soluble, these gelatos, but it still blended with what I had on my page already. So now I'm just going to heat set this a little bit so that I can have a good base for my next layer, which is going to be this studio paint. And I picked this up in the sale section at my local scrapbook store. And I forget what the color is. I don't have it handy, it has disappeared, but it's a really nice quality acrylic paint. So I'm just using, again, my finger to rub that in. And now I'm using this, what are these? They're the Distress inks, Distress stains, sorry, in the Dauber top from Tim Holtz. And I just applied the gold color all over my page and blended it with my fingers. And now I'm adding some more black gelato to my dry page. And this whole process is really, I could never imitate this exact thing, and I think if you were to follow this same process, you would come up with a different result as well. And that's the beauty of art journaling, in my opinion, is you never get the same result twice. So I just slowed this down here to show you what it looks like right now. I still have quite a few layers to add, some more gelato, I believe, as well as doing my embellishing, but this is what the base of it looks like. So you can see the edges of all the layers that I've added, but the patterns aren't necessarily visible in all spots. Here I'm just putting some Mod Podge on a scrap piece of plastic, and I'm going to mix in some very fine black glitter. I'm mixing this very thick with the glitter, so I'm not using very much Mod Podge at all actually. I just mixed in what I could, and I'm using the end of a paintbrush to stir that around. And now I'm just going to scoop that up and sort of randomly scrape it across my page. You could do this same technique using a stencil, that would look really cool, but I wanted to do this sort of random application here, and it created some really nice texture. I hadn't done this before, and I think it turned out quite cool. So I just scraped up as much as I could of that glitter mixture and put it on my page quite randomly. Now what you'll see is I'm taking a piece of lace that I've cut lengthwise because it was a thicker piece, and I'm just applying it to the page using some more Mod Podge. And I generously applied this to the lace because it absorbed a lot of the Mod Podge, but I also add another layer on top of it once I've stuck it to the page, and this really helps it adhere well. And there's no chance of it moving once it's dry. I was quite happy with how it dried. So now I'm using some Versamark pigment ink, and I'm using some of my Tim Holtz stamps. This one is a tiny alphabet stamp texture, background texture, I guess, and I'm just sort of randomly stamping it around my page. I like to do this without an acrylic block while I'm using it in my art journal because I think it gives it a more sort of random stamped effect, and I'm not looking for a perfect impression anyways. And I'm repeating that process here with another stamp that has numbers all over it. And now I will be spraying it with some of my Heidi Swap Color Shine, and I just give that a mist. And I'm also using a white color from Tattered Angels, and it's from their chalkboard collection, as well as splattering more gold on top of that, just to create a really interesting effect on top of my stamping, because I didn't want it to appear at the front of all the layers. And I'm just using some of that fine glitter and sprinkling it into the wet mist. It probably, I wasn't expecting it to adhere very well because it doesn't have a binding agent in it like something like Perfect Pearls does, which is activated by water, but the glitter didn't seem to fly everywhere, so I think it stuck to some of the wet Mod Podge that was on my page still. And now you will see I'm nearing completion, and I've already laid out my letter stickers that I want to use to put my quote on this page, which is going to read, "Creativity is not a competition," and this is something that I really relate to right now, so I wanted to include that on this page. And these letters were a bit of a challenge to stick down, but I just applied Mod Podge on the back as well as did a layer on top. Because of all the wet layers of that lace and the glitter Mod Podge paste underneath, I had a lot of texture to apply them on top of, so it was a bit of a struggle, but I got it to stick in the end. So I'm just adding the word competition now. And these letter stickers are, let me just grab them here. They are from October Afternoon, and they're called the Mini Market stickers. I'm not sure if you can still get them, but I really love this font, and they come in different colors too. And now I'm just using my Tim Holtz label letters. Those are the tiny black tile letters. And I just painted on some Mod Podge underneath them to make it easier to stick because they were not sticky enough to go on top of all of my layers again. So I'm just finishing that up, and I believe I'm going to add some gelato on top of these stickers once it's a bit dry. So I'm always quite impatient, so I often speed things up with my heat tool, and I recommend you do the same, unless it's something like paste that can often bubble up when you try to dry it. So yes, here I am applying some gelatos now that my page is dry again, and this just really brings a few areas to the front of the page. That star that's embossed, I really like how it looks, and I'm just going to go into my Okay, final I'm going to
Ah.
call this done for now anyways. That's one thing I like about art journaling, is that you can keep playing with it for as long as you want, and you can leave it for months on end, come back months later and add some more to it. But this is what I have, and sorry for the glare. It is a bit of a shiny page because of all the Mod Podge I used, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. So check out my blog for more detailed photos if you're interested. There's the link in the description below, as well as come see me on Instagram and Pinterest if you're interested in that. My username is StayBeautiful84, same as it is here. So check me out there if you want. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a good one.